Pagi ni I'm going to try to share some of my experience in this journey. I like the word excellence. I normally spell it a little different. Instead of EX, I always use ACT, excellence, because in reality, it is the act of the person, the act of the human that makes it good or not good, because this word excellence is used a lot, but I could not relate to it until I realized that it's actually an act that we have to do. All right? So I'm going to take you through a short journey of what we do at PSI, and I'm going to share some experiences with you. I hope in this process there will be something useful for you to also see. As I started this company in 1997 after working for 10 years for a multinational. And the reason I did it was because I really enjoyed my job in the multinational, but I was wanting to have more engineering excellence and more control over of what we were doing in Malaysia and the region. But the MNC I was working for wanted only a sales operation, and the centers of excellence or engineering were always in Europe or in America. So I changed my direction in 97 and decided to go solo, and I started the operation, and I work in an environment which is mostly in utilities and public infrastructure. So you will see it in a minute. So it was a very difficult start, you would say, because starting from zero is a big challenge. But in the last 16 years now, we are now 280 staff, mostly engineers, professionals, graduate employees, and we have staffs from 8 different nationalities, very multinational, very multiracial, and we have executed more than 200 projects, not only in Malaysia, but also many of them are outside the country, and the turnovers we have done over the years also are substantial. Currently, we have our headquarters in Kuala Lumpur, but we have subsidiary offices in Oman, in Bahrain, in India. We have a back office for engineering, and we have also an operation in Thailand. You can see a picture of our plant, and some picture of management meetings, and a picture of some of the staff, not all of them. We couldn't get all of them in this picture. But what are the highlights? Yeah. From 97, when we started as an unknown company, we have become the largest engineering center in Southeast Asia, not just in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, for automation, protection, and control in the utility sector for substations. This is a very significant statement because we are not very large companies in these areas, which are like Siemens, ABB, GE. They are billions and billions of dollars turnovers, and they are 100-year-old companies. So for a small player like us to be a leader in this industry is very significant. The last 5 years, we have also been the largest supplier to our main utilities, which is Tenaga Nasional and SESB. Thank you. You have been a very good customer for us, and we have been successful continuously, not just in 1 year or in 2 years, but on a continuous basis. What is the secret? The secret is that we have full indigenous control over what we do. Everything that we deliver to our customers is engineered, built, and delivered from our own operation. And that gives us a lot of personalization. That gives us the possibility to support the customer in a very quick time, whereas most of our competitors, the local companies, act only as post boxes to somebody sitting overseas to support them. And that makes a huge difference for us. Our staff are highly skilled, and we have now executed projects in 14 different countries. So more than 50% of our business now is international. One of our most recent projects is to supply the National Control Center for Oman, where the electricity grid is running the electrical network out of our system. So pictures, a quick snapshot of some customers that we have. What have we been doing in the 17 years? So we have built up a full engineering facility. We are able to design, engineer, test, manufacture, go on site and commission complex systems, and also retrofit existing and old systems. Just giving you some random pictures. We have also research and development facility, which is, I think, the only one in the country. We build stuff which is normally only imported. And finally, we deliver control rooms like this as well. Okay, so then I will show you some pictures of some. The market sectors that we are addressing, we are purely in digital infrastructure. I use the word digital infrastructure, which means we cover all the different types of systems which are digital within an infrastructure. So we do hydro dams, we do substations, we do network management in infrastructure, for example, in tunnel automation. We do all the things which are related to communication, CCTV, access control, ventilation control, lighting control, all the things which are related to control, which is the brain of the system, you would say. This is one of our early projects, 2005 we finished this project. It is the Network Control Center for TNB for the Klang Valley. It is the largest control center of its kind in this region. We control 30,000 substations from this control room, and it has more than 1 million data points that we monitor. It was completed, the contract was for 36 months. We managed to complete it in 24, and we were very pleased that the customer appreciated this very much. This was another similar project which we did in 2008, but this time for north, east, and the south of the country, peninsula, and 3 different control centers. This project was completed in 7 months, even though the contract was for 36 months. So we had a special request at that time from the Prime Minister, because they wanted to open the control center before the elections. And we worked very hard to make this a success, and I got a personal thank you from the Prime Minister. This is the Smart Tunnel Control Center. I don't know if any of you have used this. I don't have time to show you the video, but maybe you can go on YouTube and watch it. A lot of Malaysians don't believe the Smart Tunnel actually works, but it is a very, very unique project where, for the first time in the world, the same tunnel is used to transfer either traffic or water. And before this Smart Tunnel, there has never been such a project in the world. And this control center allows them to monitor the complete traffic part of the tunnel, as well as shut down the traffic and switch it to the flood mode. Since this tunnel project was completed, Smart Tunnel project was completed in 2006, there has been no major flood in Kuala Lumpur city anymore. So it has been a great success, and it has been used continuously. The consultant for this project was Mort MacDonald from London, the largest tunnel consultant in the world. And after this project was completed, they complimented us by telling us that this was the most advanced tunnel control system they have seen. So it was a very big compliment, and we were the only local company that competed for this job among all the multinationals. This is another example where we have delivered all the timetable system, the passenger information system, the public announcement systems, video management, and currently we are just completing the upgrade of the KL monorail. So when you go probably in January or February, you will see the new 4-car as well as the new comms systems that are running on the train. It will be also the first time in the region where we will have live streaming of CCTV from the vehicle, from the moving vehicle. It's never been done before. This will be the first of its kind. So how did we get on this journey? Yeah, I think this was already shared. I had the Technology Entrepreneur Award, and I would say, though I won this award as an individual, it does not really represent me. It represents the team. It represents the company, because I can only lead the company as far as the team wants to go. Okay, so I can give them the visions, the goals, I can drive the ideas, but I need the people around me. So this was a great achievement for all of us, and Ernst & Young has also a very thorough process of evaluation. And then we have won some other couple of awards, but these are, I would say, the byproducts of excellence, of business excellence. CIDB MITI Award. And why did we go on this journey of excellence? We of course believed that we were doing a lot of good things, right things, but we wanted to benchmark ourselves. We didn't know really what were the practices that everybody else is doing, and that's when MPC's event came along, and we decided to participate in this Business Excellence Forum. Now, the first attempt we made in 2009, I think was 2009, we actually were one of the finalists, but we did not win it. We did not win the award. But what we did get out of that exercise was we got a lot of knowledge of what good companies focus on. The 6 pillars that Dato mentioned just now. What are the 6 pillars? How are they measured? What is the kind of evidence? There were certain things we were doing in our organization, but we did not record them, or we did not manage those elements to keep them relevant, and how did we know we were improving or not improving? So I would say to everybody who is sitting in this room today, it is a very, very good exercise to go through this business excellence audit. In school, they always tell us don't copy, yeah? They always tell us don't copy. But once you leave school and you start business, the fastest way to growth and success is please copy. Please copy. You know, because if you don't copy, you will never have all the time in your life to learn good practices. It's impossible. And just look at the success factors out there. You know, the iPod today was never the invention of Apple. Do you know who invented it? Anybody even remembers? It was a company from Singapore called Creative Technology. Creative Technology was the company that invented the iPod, and Steve Jobs copied it and just made it so good that none of us can live without one today. Yeah? And all innovations are like that. So actually in business, it is so important to copy good practices and good people who have invested a lot of money into practices that have progressed their organizations, into practices that have brought their organizations from mediocre to good to excellent. And those practices, if we just copy and do them, will change our organization as well. It's as simple as that. So this business excellence process that we did with MPC actually led us on the first round focus, and we saw what we did well and what we were not doing well. We caught up on that. On our second attempt in 2011, we won this award. And it is a great journey to be on. And some of the things that, why do we want to do this business excellence? Because if you don't, you know, you can't stay competitive. You can't stay competitive. Everybody out there is your competitor. The world today is a totally different world from what it used to be 20 years ago, okay? You can buy online a pair of trousers from a supplier in Argentina cheaper than the price you pay down in town. I don't know if you're aware of that. A lot of my friends, including me, I buy some of my clothes online today because they are half the price of what I pay for them in the supermarket or in the stores. The same brand, the same product, it costs much cheaper. I do not know if you are aware, in Australia, people buy their cars online. The car costs 15% cheaper, even after shipping from the US to Australia. Okay? The world is changing. So business practices have to change, and if we don't, we are not going to be competitive. If we are not going to look into business excellence, we are not going to see what other people are doing better. What are the industrial leaders doing? What are they doing that is bringing them world markets? What is Apple doing? What is Microsoft doing? What is, in FIOA and manufacturing, you would look at those type of organizations. But you have to look at industrial leaders and filter out what is something that you are not doing and do that. Okay? You have to manage your talent better, and business excellence will allow you to do that because your chances are that you will retain them. And finally, it gives you a blueprint. These 6 pillars give you a blueprint of things to focus on. Otherwise, you have to bring in your own consultants, pay a lot of money, get them to audit you and tell you what you need to do. And most of the things I can tell you that they are going to tell you is going to fall back into the 6 pillars. You have to use this to become an industry leader. If you are not a leader, then the risk is that you are a follower, and worst down the chain is you are a follower just on price, lowest price. Then it would mean lowest service quality that you're providing. So if you are not a GLC or not somebody who is protected, you are going to risk being obsolete. Business excellence, I cannot emphasize this, is a great talent retainer. It's a great talent retainer. Because business excellence is not a one-time effort. It's not something I do this week or do 2 weeks in a year. It's something that I have to do every day, every week, every month, for the whole year, for as long as I want to have an organization that's going to be excelling. And that will drive people, because people don't just, talent doesn't come only for money. People don't just come for a salary, especially good people, okay? They come for more than just a salary. And finally, you will become the customer's preference, all right? We have our vision, and we want to be a partner of our customers. We build partnerships, and we measure our partnerships by the number of repeat orders we get from our customer. But how do we do this? We do this with empowered people. We are very, very relaxed in our atmosphere at the office. We don't really manage our people, but we manage our results. Okay? We manage our results. There is risk in doing this. You always will have people who will take advantage of the system, but you know the saying, one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. We try not to use the worst case example to set the benchmark for the whole organization, which is what a lot of companies tend to do. They take the worst case and then say, oh, this guy did this, so now because of that we got to enforce it on the rest of the employees. It's a very old school, old thought, especially in our field, in my field. If we are in talent, which is knowledge-based, a lot of our staff are mobile staff. They are able to get jobs anywhere in the world, forget about just Malaysia. We have to have factors that are going to attract them to the organization and want them to work there. Our core values are also reflecting the way we work. So speaking the truth is the highest core value that we have. And we find that, interestingly, this one factor is so difficult to practice. It's so easy to say about it, to talk about it, but it's so difficult to practice because speaking the truth means you're exposing your weaknesses or your team's weaknesses. And if you do this if you hide things personally, or if you hide things with the organization or your team, then you risk failure of the whole group. Okay? The risk is that you create troubles for the whole group. So only if you speak the truth, you can be a team player. Because then it's not about hiding your stuff or covering your own stuff against the others. And we want to always have engineering excellence, and continuous improvement, or Kaizen, is our mantra. We don't accept status quo. We don't accept. If we are doing something in 10 hours, next year we want to find how we can do it in 9. The next year we want to find out how we can do it in 8. Because we cannot accept status quo. If we are not doing that, somebody else is. Okay? Somebody else is. And that is going to be our threat. I have a message for all of you. This is the way I run my organization with senior leaders. You have to trust them. You have to trust them. The first word is trust. If you don't have the trust of your senior, how do you trust them? You have to give them empowerment. All right? Now, empowerment is something that is a word that is used a lot, but you find people saying, my guys are empowered, but then at the end of the day, every decision is made by the boss. So if the boss is making all the decisions, how can the people be empowered? Okay? It doesn't work. So first you have to trust them, then you have to train them, and then you have to really unleash them. You have to empower them. A lot of times my senior managers, if they come to me and say, boss, can you tell me what to do for this? And I say, no, you have to decide. And they say, no, but boss, I say, you have to decide. I can only concur with it or not. But I'm not going to decide for this, because if I decide, I always explain to them, you are actually shifting the power to me. And you are losing an opportunity to learn and to have the leadership yourself. So, and to do that is a very conscious decision as the head of an organization. It's a very difficult thing to do, because every year we tend to do the same thing we did last year. We keep on, if we do the same jobs every year, then there is no way that our people will grow. Okay? No way our people will grow. So you have to trust them, you have to train them, and you have to unleash them. And true enough, in this process, there are some people that you may not have who perform to the level that you want, and you also have to let them go. Okay? You have to let them go. Or they may decide to go on their own. Very important aspect of acting in excellence is communication. It is so important, I cannot emphasize it enough. Communication is basically the one thing that glues people together. All fights, all disagreements, all failures in projects, if analyzed to the end, mostly point to ineffective communication. Mostly. So what do we do as an organization? We do management retreats, we do lots of meetings, and we put in a framework in our meetings of transparency. If there is no filtration of information from any one department to another, or any person to the organization, the chances are that we have possibilities to perform at a higher level. Is this difficult to do? Yes, it is. It's very difficult, and it is something that we have to do on a continuous basis. But it is not the meetings and just the retreats and the discussions that we do. I think a lot of organizations do that, but you find that people leave meetings without any outcomes. No decisions are made. Even if a decision is made, who is to execute it and by when, these elements are missing. Okay? So our meetings are very focused. Our discussions are very focused. They must result in an outcome, a decision. And who is going to implement it and by when? And even if you have that, the next point will be so important is how do you then manage that it actually gets done? Okay? Because even in the past when we were not using proper tools, this used to be action sheets and used to be minutes of meetings with names, with dates that get filed somewhere on the server, in a file. Nobody remembers to follow these things up. And if you have so many meetings and you have so many things to be done, you get lost in all this paper. So we are using a lot of technology now. We use a software, we call it task and issue management. We do not have any more Word documents for minutes of meeting. Everything that we decide goes into a software tool that allows us to manage the deadlines, the people, and the processes. Without this, we will not be able to keep track of all the decisions that we are making and what is getting implemented. And some technologies, I know a lot of you use WhatsApp, for example. WhatsApp is a fantastic resource for small groups. We have WhatsApp as divisions, in management. We have 10, 15 different groups, sometimes some specific focus for projects. And it allows us to stay collaborated. It allows us to communicate very efficiently, very quickly, and the whole team knows what's going on. Okay, so these are some of the key things that you could use. A company or a service that you provide is only as good as the people. I think there is not enough, nothing that we do is going to be possible if the people are not going to be motivated. So what we do is we invest and spend a lot of effort to develop people. The next thing that we do is we help to educate our customers about our service, not just about our service, but also about technology, because a lot of the things that we are doing are in technology, in the area of technology. And unfortunately, the consultants do not have as much exposure as we do. So the consultants are also sometimes behind us. And we try to spend a lot of effort to educate our customers. And then only it comes to the products. Actually, it is first our employees, then our customers, and then only our products and services. I've sequenced it out that way, but I emphasize again that it is the two key things is people, your organization people, and the people and your customers. Both sides, it's people. Okay? This statement is a statement from Zig Ziglar and most of the people, and I think, again, I would say it as part of the Asian culture, we tend to micromanage people. Manage things and resources. Lead people. Okay? You can only lead people if you set objectives, if you give people a task and say, I want this done, by when and to which specification, then all you have to do is manage that outcome. Don't go and manage how they are going to do it, when they are going to do it, at what time they are going to do it, and who they are going to get involved. The Asian style especially tends to overemphasize on managing people. If you manage people, you stunt their growth, okay? Because then they will only follow whatever you want. Number two, you yourself are so busy doing their job that you have no time to do your own leadership. Okay? You have no time to do the leadership. And the worst case scenario for this is when you promote them to become the boss, they don't know how to be one. Because you never trained them to be one. Okay? So manage things and resources, lead your people. This is a phrase that I have coined, innovate or evaporate. Okay? If you do not innovate in the way you are working, if you are not emphasizing each opportunity to learn, to improve, to change your processes, to get better skills in your people, you will finally evaporate. Of course, you won't evaporate if you are a GLC or government organization, but in a sense, the people will be very frustrated with your services. We have so many people doing more of the same thing every year and expecting a different result. It's simply not possible. You do the same thing you did last year, this year, you're going to get the same result this year as well. So you have to do things different. will result in a different outcome. Okay? So you got to innovate in every section, in every department, in every way that you work. And it is so important. So some of the example, I just give you a simple example of how we do people development. We always talk about excellence, quality, and how we are presenting ourselves to the customers. So I want you to watch this video. Camera in one of the office locations, and intentionally we put that piece of paper on the floor. Okay? And we are monitoring this and showing it as feedback to the staff. You talk about excellence, you talk about world leadership, you talk about being a global company, and what is the attitude of the people? So we had many people just walking right past the paper. Just look at it, it's shocking. We can talk as much as we want, but this is the reality. It took about 10 minutes or 15 minutes of traffic before somebody finally stopped and picked it up. Okay, maybe it's speeded up so you can actually see, but these are the kind of things we have to do. It's not just about talking about excellence, it's showing the people, it's giving real examples. Yeah? It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, if you put 50 ringgit or 10 ringgit there, we picked up immediately, right? We're all driven by rewards. But okay, I think it will just come on. We can skip to the next slide. But finally, somebody will pick it up. And you can imagine when I showed this video to everyone, it's really, we can go to the next slide. It's really very enlightening for them to see. It's actually, it's a state of mind. You know, a lot of people come to work. I like the way one of the speakers put it in a seminar that I attended. He says when people park their cars and lock them and come to the office, most of the time they also lock away their brain. They only collect it on the way home. You know, they just stop thinking when they go to work. And sometimes we in organizations, we are also driving such a behavior by deciding everything for everyone. As I said, micromanaging people. If you micromanage people, you run the high risk that people will stop thinking. Because after some years, they will absolutely not be able to work by themselves anymore. If they don't get a task, they will sit at their table and wait all day for you. All right? Very, very important in management of information and knowledge. Okay, and a lot of us look at this top line. We look at order intake, we look at revenue. As an organization, we look into this, and we look at bottom line, which is the EBITs, the cash flows. These are the main indicators of an organization's health from, I would say, the reality is these are byproducts. These are byproducts of the behavior of the people, of the company. Because if you make this the focus, which is what a lot of organizations do, then you end up frustrated people with leaving the organization a lot of the time. And if you are not a big name, if you are not a Toshiba or a Siemens or a big name, where people want to work with you just because they feel they are secure or they are in an environment which is very big, the chances they will not work with you for long. They will move on. The reality is actually we have to manage the performance line. It is how do employees feel when they come to work. Are they satisfied? Are they happy? Are they getting challenges? What is the employee retention program that you have, and what is your real success in retaining the employees? We are very proud that we have a very small staff turnover, which is really impressive for an organization like us. But it has taken a lot of effort to manage this performance line. And you would find that the more satisfied an employee is coming to work, the more, it's not Monday blues, but Monday, hey, I just can't wait to get to office. There's so much to do. I need to do this, I need to do that. If you have people, many of your people coming to work like that, it's going to change the performance of the whole organization. It's more important to manage the performance line than anything else. And recently, we have been, over the last year, I got my colleague Azahar here with me. Azahar started a program which I am calling Managing the Waste Line. The waste line. He started a running program in the organization, and we go running on weekends. And we sign up for last 2 weekends ago, they did the KL Marathon. We have now close to 35, 40 employees in this event. And the numbers are growing. And people are really enjoying themselves. They get together on weekends purely on their own. They go for training, they are focusing on their health. And these are the kind of things which are great team builders. They are not driven by the organization, but they are driven by individual leaders within the organization that are creating a lot of awareness for health, that finally builds into a team. And people are discussing, of course, all kinds of things, but one of the most important part of an organization is the well-being of the people, the morale of the people, the willingness of the people. And I can tell you that to be a Malaysian company, to do export is very challenging, especially when we are competing with MNCs which are global. We always go with the underdogs. People always see us as, oh, what could you offer us that the Americans or the Europeans and the Japanese are not already offering us? So we go as the underdogs, and this is a mindset that has to be changed. If our performance is high, if people are thinking and exposed to such type of environments that they feel proud, they feel confident of themselves, then we can break through this barrier. Otherwise, we go there and we fail. Not because of anything but the attitude of the person. Okay? So we do a lot of activities for well-being, for moral, for keeping the people's spirit up. These are kind of activities that we do. We travel around the world. We take the whole company, from the drivers to the guards to everybody. We travel, we've been to China, we've been to Korea, we've been to Australia, and we expose them to the environment, and we show them what the world out there is like. And this type of investment is I think, even sometimes more important than the bonuses that we give them. Individually, of course, the bonus is important, but as an organization, the learning, the teamwork, the team building that we do makes them feel very, very proud of the organization. So I cannot emphasize this enough. The journey of excellence it's not an event, it's a journey. Though we won this award in 2011, we have continued to innovate, we have continued to develop ourselves and improve ourselves, and it takes many years, many years to make this a culture of the organization. It is not something that's going to happen in 1 week, or attending one seminar, or getting one consultant to come in, and it has to be top down. It has to be top down. It has to be driven by the CEO who carries that vision, who lives it, who walks his talk, talks his walk, and the people will see this over time and believe, and finally when they start believing in your vision, only then they will start being able to transform. And today we are able to we have built some tools which are the first of its kind in the world, and we are extremely proud of this. It is a complete, even large organizations do not have such tools that we have. So it is very unique. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you. I hope I was able to give you some inputs and some thoughts to take away. And I hope that you will choose the path of going on the path of excellence, because as we discussed earlier during our break, if all companies or most companies in Malaysia start going on this path, it will mean that as a nation we will progress. If we don't, it means as a nation we will struggle because our competitors are doing it anyway, whether we do it or not. So they are going to get ahead of us, and that will finally mean that in the future of this nation, we will become more and more dependent on foreign services and foreign products than local services and products. With that, thank you very much. Yeah?